Democrats can't deal with any dissent. They, in this state, cannot deal with any disappointment. It was interesting because, like, at the election night party for Democrats in downtown Seattle, I was watching the news coverage and the mood was like grim. You won everything, but then they lost the presidency. So people are like, oh, yeah, my life is over. And it's like, you won literally everything in this state. But it's they can't deal with any sort of, they have so much power here and it's so consolidated and they're so used to it that any disappointment, any dissent, any losses is like, we're going to lose our ever-loving minds. And that goes for the initiatives. They're only going to lose on one. Of the 4 that went to voters, 3 of them resounding defeats. You'd think Democrats would be like, all right, that's a win for us. We're able to spend our way and lie our way into getting people to vote no on these. But no, Governor Inslee came out and he said what we all expected, which is they'll throw a temper tantrum and they'll sue over this.
There is concern about that initiative. It's very important to preserve the initiative process, to respect the initiative process.
Oh, God, give me a break.
And questions have been raised whether this was a defective initiative. It really was not fair to voters because it did not adequately describe what it really was. And I think there is a very good chance that the court will find that it was defective by violating the single subject rule and therefore will not be actually go into effect. But we'll see.
Are you kidding me? That's how power hungry they are. The state writes these ballot things. The state approves them. And we've had this conversation before, which the state should determine the constitutionality of a ballot measure before it goes on the ballot for voters to weigh in on. But they don't do that intentionally because they know the only people running initiatives are conservatives. And so they'll be like, well, I don't know, we might have constitutional questions about it, but let's send it to voters anyway, have everyone get excited, weigh in on it, and then we'll do a legal challenge on the back end when we don't get our way. That is the power we've given to Democrats. And nobody seems to care or understand how that is such an abuse of power. It's insane. And it's, they could win on everything else. It's like, give us our freaking natural gas. Just let us have it. No, not Governor Inslee. And then he starts and has the audacity to say, oh, we have to respect the initiative process. Give me a break. Your party did 0 to respect the initiative process. Harassing signature gatherers, sanctioned by the state Democratic Party, lawfare to try to disenfranchise 1.6 million of your constituents. You did everything you could to undermine the initiative process. The Speaker of the House said it saddened her. It's the first thing Democrats are going to try to get rid of if they get a supermajority. Give me a break, Governor Inslee. I cannot wait till that man is gone. Although, I think the new boss is going to be far worse than the old boss. One of the things Governor Inslee said when he was talking about election results is he referred to his replacement, Bob Ferguson, and the man who will replace Bob Ferguson, Nick Brown, and said, he's thinking that they're going to pick up the mantle where he left off and going after Donald Trump.
We know that there are likely to be challenges from the White House as we experienced of the first rodeo with Donald Trump. And I'm very confident that we have the best duo to defend Washington State that we could possibly have, which is Bob Ferguson as governor, Nick Brown as attorney general.
Yeah, and I said on the show yesterday that these two love that Donald Trump won. Like, they'll try to scare the hell out of people over Donald Trump, but they love it. Because what they get to do is use Donald Trump as a distraction and use Donald Trump as a way to instill fear in people and distract from the other, the campaign promises they made and the other real difficult issues in Washington State that have gotten so bad under Democratic control that they're not going to be able to fix them in their terms, even if they were to try, which I don't think they will try. And so they're like, well, now we get to fearmonger over Donald Trump. You don't believe me? Well, they're having a press conference today about it. Bob Ferguson and Nick Brown, Attorney General-elect Nick Brown, having a press conference today specifically about how they're gearing up. It says, AG Ferguson offers briefing on Washington's preparations for a second Trump administration. Media are invited to attend a press conference or participate in a conference call in which Attorney General Bob Ferguson will provide a briefing on Washington's preparations for a second Trump administration. He'll be joined by Attorney General-elect Nick Brown. Is there any question what they're going to focus on for the next 4 years? We are 2 days out of the election. They've just become, results aren't even certified. Everything else they promised, the moderacy they promised, we're going to hire more police, fix things, address crime, all of this. Let's focus on Donald Trump. This isn't a surprise. It's what they're going to do for 4 years. And anytime anybody has a whisper of, yeah, but what about homelessness? What about crime? What about the promise you made about hiring more police officers? What about overtaxation and the increased cost of living? And they're going to say, wait, what about Trump? Oh, Trump. Be very scared. We're going after Trump. I wonder if Nick Brown can sue Donald Trump more times than Bob Ferguson did. And I asked Nick Brown about this when he came on our show. We did a long interview about it. And I knew that this was going to be the case because I asked him, do you think these constant lawsuits that Bob Ferguson filed against Donald Trump were a distraction from the issues of Washington State? And he said no. And we played the ad yesterday. One of the first or last political ads Nick Brown aired in the campaign was about, we all feel the fear of the fact Donald Trump could be the next president, but I'm ready to take him on. Is that really what you want? I'm sure there are some of you who it is what you want. That we're going to, as a state, spend the next 4 years fighting the White House and ignoring the issues that continue to get worse. And you might say, well, they can do both. They haven't. Bob Ferguson hasn't done both. He hasn't made any of the issues better in Washington State. He spent 4 full years with an obsession over Donald Trump. And bringing lawsuits that had a minute tie to Washington. And in lawsuits that maybe didn't have any tie to Washington, they'd write briefs in support of them. Doubled the size of his office. No wonder they doubled the size of his office. They were spending so much time finding ways to obsess over Donald Trump. They needed extra attorneys to do so, while they were also busy prosecuting police officers unsuccessfully for murder. So, Bob Ferguson isn't going to do anything that he promised. He's not. He might give this, we have all these other, Donald Trump did this, it's a distraction, and so we got to deal with it. It's really insane, and it's not just Washington State. California, Gavin Newsom tweeted out, California is ready to fight. I just called an emergency special session to help bolster our legal resources and protect our state against any unlawful actions by the incoming Trump administration. Fear-mongering before there's anything to fear-monger over. Whether it be our fundamental civil rights, reproductive freedom, or climate action, we refuse to turn back the clock and allow our values and laws to be attacked. Gavin Newsom, your state, more than any other in the nation, went further to the right, 12 percentage points. Maybe that's a cue that people in your state want you to focus on the things that you've ruined as opposed to obsess over the former president. New York, same thing. All the issues happening in New York. Letitia James, of all people, comes out with this dramatic press conference. Dramatic, we're going to stand up to Donald Trump. Again, this was yesterday, a day after the election. Here's a clip.
So here we are.
Oh, God.
We've studied their platforms.
Oh, God.
We've identified certain possibilities, fact patterns. We've created contingency plans. So no matter what the next administration throws at us, we're ready. We're ready to respond to their attacks. We're ready to respond to any attempts to cut or eliminate any funding to the great state of New York, as the governor outlined. So despite what has happened on the national stage, we will continue to stand tall in the face of injustice, revenge, or retribution.
Wow, injustice.
We will continue to protect and our most vulnerable and marginalized amongst us. Because it is my sworn duty and responsibility to lead that fight, working with the governor of this great state, Kathy Hochul. This is not the time to be fearful, New York, but faithful and steadfast, knowing that I, as the Attorney General, along with my entire team, we are guardians of the law, and we are prepared, my friends, to fight back.
Can you get more dramatic than that? I mean, that is main character syndrome, if I have ever seen it. Talking about injustice and revenge, you mean what you guys have been doing to Donald Trump? And I'd also say, similar to California, New York, of all the states, you were the second in the shift toward, your constituents shifted 11.6% further toward Donald Trump. You don't take that as a cue? Again, Washington's an outlier. Lord only knows what the hell people are thinking here. But California and New York were we don't want any more of that. Some of the bluest states in the union. Double-digit shift toward Donald Trump. But they don't that doesn't compute for them. They think they're so righteous and they're out, we're ready. Like, ready for what? Like, what are you anticipating?
It sounds like they're ready for war.
Literally. And they want to act like he's the one, fear mongering and putting people on edge. You're putting your constituents on edge. You are the ones making your constituents more fearful about what Donald Trump might bring, as opposed to saying, look, he's the president. We'll see what happens. If there's ever a conflict between the two of us, we'll deal with it when it comes. But we got a lot of things going on in the state of New York, and we're going to focus on those things. No, can't do that.